Bad habit of mine. Okay, so our first speaker is going to be Theresa Acosta. She is the District 4 council member in Carlsbad, up for re-election this coming year. She has been our environmental champion at that council. So I'm really happy to have her speak tonight, and she'll talk a little bit and then probably have time for some questions. Okay.
No.
Thank you. It's so nice to be here. Hello, everybody. I'm Theresa Acosta. I'm on the Carlsbad City Council, and I was so pleased to have Sierra Club's endorsement and to know so many of you. Many of you I met just on Zoom, so I didn't get a chance to sit down with you, but it's good to see some friends from all around. My district runs from on the west side, south of Poinsettia Avenue in Carlsbad, across Batiquitos Lagoon, which is a fully preserved, gorgeous lagoon in Carlsbad, and then south all the way to the Encinitas border. On the east side, it's all of the Carlsbad border there. It's over by La Costa Canyon and down at the bottom with the Lievenhain. So that's my district. Of course, I'm one of 5 people on our city council, so we make decisions for the entire city. And I consider my top 3 priorities to be sustainability, safety, and affordability. Those are my top 3 priorities, and sustainability is the first I mentioned for a reason, because I really do believe that we have to be great stewards of this planet for the next generation, and that the decisions that we make right now will make or break us as a community, as a society, as a planet. So I believe really strongly in this. I taught those values to my daughter. She majored in environmental science at UC Santa Cruz and has been a marine science teacher for Monterey Bay National Sanctuary. She's since decided to work abroad in Spain. But the whole reason we moved down to Carlsbad is because we believe in education. My mom was a teacher for LAUSD, and she retired to Carlsbad when she retired from teaching. And I was a single mom in LA, still. Pasadena is where I'm born and raised. My daughter is born and raised. And I decided that I wanted to be near my mom for help.
Did your Carlsbad council member? It's kind of interesting.
Awesome. Good. I'm glad it's interesting. So we moved down in Christmas 2010, 2011. And that's when we put down roots in this community. My daughter went to Aviara Oaks Middle School and then on to Sage Creek High School. She was in the first class there. And Carlsbad has been such a welcoming, lovely community to be in. And part of the reason is because of our 3 gorgeous lagoons, our 7 miles of pristine coastline, and our emphasis on trails and parks. And I've always believed that that's part of what makes this area so special, especially coming from Pasadena. A lot of people know about the green spaces in Pasadena, but Pasadena is a suburb of LA, and there's a lot of concrete jungle areas there. And I know what I don't want this community to become. So I'm so grateful that I was elected to be on the city council, and I've continued to push a sustainability agenda whenever we've had goal setting, whenever we've talked about our priorities at the city council, or even any of the other regional organizations that I'm a part of, like the San Diego County Water Authority. I'm on the board there. I'm on the board of the League of California Cities, which is the state association of all the cities in California. I push the sustainability agenda. Let's work together to make action, real climate action, to fight climate change. So these are some of the things that I've been working on. I do constantly try to train myself and learn more. I attend workshops. I went through the Climate Reality Project training online when it was virtual, and that was really fantastic just to learn a lot more. I'm constantly receptive to people contacting me, having a meeting with me. I know that several of the Sierra Club spokespeople call me and say, okay, we want to teach you more about building electrification. And I have been very receptive. In fact, I'm the person who brought that forward in Carlsbad and really pushed it. It was so heartbreaking and disappointing that we weren't able to make real progress on that issue. There are several things that I'm really working on hard, and I'm needing help in the community. So remember, there's 5 of us. I am 1 vote, and I can only educate my colleagues so far because of the Brown Act. I don't know if you know about the Brown Act, but it's a very important state law that makes for transparency and fairness and open public conversation. So there's no backroom dealings. It's a positive state law or series of laws, the Brown Act. However, it requires that I have only conversations with one other government official, elected official in Carlsbad about any one issue. So, for example, say we're talking about Ponto Beach and how Ponto, we'd like to have a park there. I can only speak with one other council person. So I need to ask the community, please contact the other council people. There's a lot of laws around this transparency act, the Brown Act. So I can only speak with one other person, and you can speak to everyone, but you can't tell the different council people what you said to the other ones. That's called a serial meeting, and building consensus by sharing what other council people have said. So I encourage you to have meetings with us, to talk with us about things like our climate action plan. Our climate action plan is in the process of being updated right now. What the climate action plan does, the CAP does, is create a series of rules in the city and recommendations that will get us to lower greenhouse gas emissions, to meet the state targets, right? In Carlsbad, I don't feel like it's been strong enough. For years, I feel like it's not been strong enough. It's not been forward thinking enough, but I need to hear from you. Your public comment really matters. The things that you say to us as individual council members, your advocacy really matters. So I encourage you to weigh in. There is a survey now out, available until November 14th that you can fill out. And I guess that's what Paige was just showing the QR code for. So please, if you live in Carlsbad, if you're a resident of Carlsbad, we want to hear from you. And I encourage you, I went through the survey. I don't know if any of you have done it yet. It's very basic. It actually doesn't go through the different proposals. So you have to read the recommended proposals, and then you have to have kind of your own thoughts about what you'd like and put them in the comment box. They won't ask you. What they say is, what do you think of this list of 20 priorities? Check all the ones that you think are important. Of course, you go through and you check them all. Like, they're all important. And then it has a comment box. And a lot of people leave comment boxes empty. And then it has one more list. Which ones do you think are unimportant? And it asks you to select all those. And there's a comment box. And if you leave the comment box blank and you don't actually say what you think about any of those, that's the end of the survey. It's complete and it's done. And they won't let you take it again if you messed up. No do-overs. So I recommend that you think about it ahead of time, that you have a list of priorities and recommendations for the climate action plan, and that when you fill out the survey, maybe you even have it on a document and you copy and paste it into the website, and so that you actually have your recommendations. I wanted to let you know, because I know I don't have a ton of time, but I wanted to have Q&A. I wanted to let you know that I am having house parties in people's homes just to talk about whatever people want to talk about in the district, in the city. If any of you have questions, you have thoughts that you would like shared. I know I was talking earlier with some Oceanside residents about mufflers and the loud noises, and about crime and public safety. You may know in Carlsbad, with public safety, we passed an emergency traffic safety ordinance in August of last year, 2022, and it ended in August 2023. And it was right after the wife of the firefighter was killed. She was riding a bike with her baby on the back seat. The bike was hit by a car. Woman ran a stop sign, hit the bike. The woman was killed. The baby kind of flew out of the seat and was totally fine. And so the husband came and their family came to council, and it was so terrible, and everybody was crying. It was just so sad, but we knew it wasn't the only time, because we have this real intersection of bikes, cars, pedestrians. You know, we want to encourage multimodal transportation. We want people walking and biking and jogging and not just being in their cars all the time. That's great. As environmentalists, yes, we want people out of their cars. However, people are not being safe. All of those folks, there's not one party that is an angel and doing everything correctly. everybody needs to be more vigilant. So we have this whole street safety emergency that the city council declared. We put some money behind it, and we asked that people have the street safety signs. I know I have one at my house still. There's window clings. There's a lot of education. You could sign the street safety pledge on the website that says you will be more vigilant as a driver or cyclist or a pedestrian. And then we have extra law enforcement. That's actually a big thing. We've put some money into having more traffic cops out on the streets. And then the third part was the engineering, a real focus on green paint on our bike lanes. And I know many of you are really interested in that as cyclists, and we're seeing how that's playing out. There's a lot of tension between drivers and cyclists. So we're just trying to navigate that. I know that there are certain intersections where people are saying, please, don't minimize a 2-lane to a 1-lane street. So I'm listening to you. If you have concerns or questions, please reach out. You may know or may not know that in Carlsbad, all of our city council members post our cell phones and email addresses on the city website. So you can literally go to City of Carlsbad website, click on City Council. You'll see all of our little faces. So even if you forget that I'm Theresa, like Mother Teresa, if you forget, or Acosta, you could say Acosta, and then you think Acosta for La Costa, because that's the area that I represent, South Carlsbad's La Costa. So even if you forget using those memory tricks, you can still see my face on the city website, and you can click through and see my cell phone number and my email address. You can email me, you can text me, you can call me. I have set office hours. Someone was just asking, Dawn was just asking. I have set office hours on Thursday afternoons because I work full time. You may not know that council is a part-time job. As educated and skilled as we think we are on the council, it only pays part-time. So the, gross income for council is $24,000 a year. That is not enough to live in Carlsbad. And I have a full-time job. I have a consulting business. In fact, I work in the environmental space as well. One of my clients is the South Coast Air Quality Management District, which works on air quality attainment for LA, Orange County, Riverside County, and San Bernardino counties. So I work a lot on that. I try to walk the walk. I drive electric. I've got solar. I'm still converting my 70s gas stove over. I'm trying to afford it to go to electric, but I'm doing my best to serve you and to be a good role model and to listen to you and be a good voice for my district. I'm not perfect, but I try my best, and I'm really grateful for your support, understanding, and patience, and I'm open to any questions that you may have if I haven't covered anything you want to know about. Yes, the city website, unless you want to put up the QR code. Yes, the website is carlsbadca.gov, and you can find the survey for CAP. They're actually tried to go into it and take the link out so I could post it, but they wouldn't allow me. It says you've already completed this survey.
On the website, the survey will come up.
Great. Thank you. I also forgot to mention, maybe you've heard last year, we passed the Skip the Stuff ordinance, which would require that, which is in place now. It requires that restaurants ask you if you want utensils when you do pick up at any restaurant. So they cannot automatically give you plastic or chopsticks or any utensils. We also passed a ban on plastic bags and plastic bottles at city events. And we passed a ban on mass balloon releases, like for weddings and graduations, because what goes up must come down, and that's pollution. We've been fighting for more parks and trails, and coming next year, we will have a new community garden in South Carlsbad, my district. I'm so happy because we currently have 3 community gardens in Carlsbad. They're all in the north part of the city, and we're going to get one at Stagecoach Community Park in 2024.
Can we open it up to questions?
Yeah.
Here, I'll have you ask into the microphone for the benefit of our
First, I'm pleased that your number one priority is sustainability. Second, I do agree with you that our current climate action plan is not strong enough. And I would add to that, I have reviewed the proposed update. And just to share with you and the general audience, something I don't understand, the city apparently feels they have the authority to ban gas leaf blowers. I'm all for banning gas leaf blowers. Basically says prohibit. The word is there, gas leaf blowers. But then when it gets to solar electric over parking lots, which personally I think is a no-brainer, France passed an ordinance a long time ago, solar electric over parking lots. It's, okay, I even printed it out. It is assess feasibility of installing solar panels over parking lots at city facilities. And number 6, sustainability on our community vision. It talks about leadership. To me, and I appreciate your efforts, and I will finish with a question. Marketing 101 is spaced repetition of information. What are your thoughts about proactive citizens showing up at City Council unencumbered by the Brown Act and sharing thoughts with all 5 council members at the same time?
Yes, please come to council meetings and share these thoughts and repeat these thoughts in private meetings individually with each of us, and email and show up and speak out loud and come to meetings like this and make these front and center issues. Yes, you're right. We shouldn't just be studying whether or not we should have solar carports. We should have them. Yes. I mean, all of these things. You probably have seen my frustration on the council, even things like our electric fleets. We had it in our last cap that we needed to move to all electric fleets. We put some language in there where technically feasible, because we heard some pushback that there were some cars that the law enforcement used or that some departments might use that there wasn't an electric version available. And so we said, okay, where available, yes, we will require it where available. Earlier this year, the police department came to the council and they said there's a delay in this purchase of new vehicles for the police department. Can we just get gas ones? They have them available. And I said, no, we have promised in the cap. I was the only one to vote no on a council of 5. So I really need you. It feels very lonely. Sometimes I'm looking at my colleagues like, what? How are you not seeing we're breaking a promise to the people? The council has already passed a climate action plan where we said we will move to all electric where possible. How can you break it?
Just to add on to that, I will say one of the roles of Sierra Club and being involved in what we're all doing here is that very thing came up, and then we encourage letter writing and people to show up, and we always speak with one voice, so we usually pick a representative. But that's an easy way if people want to be more involved. Just make sure we have your contact info so we can make sure that you're in the loop and we're providing that sort of feedback. And it's really important. Amelie, were there any questions from the online? Okay, here you go.
It's 10 o'clock at night. I'm in bed. 2 o'clock in the morning, trying to get some sleep. And I hear this automotive coming down the tracks, blowing their horns, waking up everybody. And I'm thinking, why is something like this allowed in Carlsbad when it's not allowed in Oceanside? I can't imagine I'm the only one complaining about this, but it's not that they toot their horn. I mean, tooting it once is enough to clear whatever danger that's down the road, but they seem like they have a vengeance, and they pull down the horn like they're going to really be a nuisance to everybody and wake up everybody. And I'm just wondering why that hasn't been forbidden in Carlsbad.
Okay, so this is a more complicated question and controversial because there are safety implications to having quiet zones. So the decision is made by North County Transit District, and there are a lot of laws that govern train horns. It's not a decision made by the city of Carlsbad or the city of Oceanside or the city of Encinitas. However, what is happening right now is that the city of Encinitas has the trains going right through their downtown where there are houses quite close to the train station. And they are activating a letter writing campaign against the city council saying you need to do something. Go to NCTD and stop the noise because we're trying to sleep here. Understandable. But because of the many laws that govern the train sounds, they would need to get approval from Carlsbad for silence at Carlsbad Village, Poinsettia Train, all the way down through Encinitas. Since we have at-grade crossings in Carlsbad that have been somewhat dangerous, we have had a high-ish number of accidents and fatalities in Carlsbad Village. There is concern. If we turn off the sound and we only have lights and arms that go down at the at-grade crossings, it will be even more dangerous. And that would be a very risky liability for the city. So we have had these conversations. The position of the city right now is the liability is too great because we will lose people, we will lose lives, whether they're visitors or residents. The horns alert people to the fact that a train is coming very fast and it's not slowing down. It's coming. And if we turn off the sound because people live near the train station and they're bothered by the sound, people may die. So that's the controversy, is some people think, I don't like the sound, and I don't want the sound. And other people think, well, if you take away the sound of the train horn, then people will not know the train is coming, or they won't have enough time and they will get hit by the train, or their car will get hit by the train. So that's the question. The only reason that the city has a voice, particularly in this, is because NCTD is asking for the cities to take a position and give money towards the quiet zone. So that's that question. Sorry, I'm getting the hand that says our time is up for this question, but thank you for this. It is controversial. There are two sides of the issue, and I'm open to hearing what people have to say, but I know I was just getting the flag that we got to move along, maybe because it wasn't environmental. I don't know.
So
Is it a time?
yes, I hate to cut it short, but unfortunately,
worries.
we're going to need to move to the next thing. If anyone has a really quick question, we could do that, or maybe you could just take a minute and talk to people separately if there's anything really pressing for somebody.
Okay.
But thank you so
Thank you
much
for
for
having me.
being here. Really appreciate it. And we do have a very active political committee. Harold is the chair, and we do get involved with endorsements for awesome people like Theresa, is an example of someone we've endorsed. So anyone who's interested in getting more involved with that whole process, Harold's your man right in the back here.
And before you walk away, I know she's in District 4 and you may not be able to vote for her, but keep in mind there's 5 votes on that council, and all those votes decide our policies. So whether or not you're in your district or not, you can still help her out during her campaign.
Yeah.
I did want to mention one thing about the cap, and as she pointed out, there is you kind of have to read through all the measures, but Mike has put together a condensed table that has all that information in a more compact form. So maybe we can figure out if you want to take a look at that. It might speed up the process. So anyway, so our main topic for tonight is native plants, and the next speaker I've known for probably 15 years because she helped me convert my yard to native plants many years ago, pro bono, and she heads up the native plant garden crew here, of which I help out on Monday mornings when I'm able to. And so she's a wealth of information. And then we're going to have another speaker that talks about how you can work locally to do some restoration projects. So this is Joan Bockman.
Hello. Let's see if I can get somebody over there to put that thing that says native plants up on the wall there. And we'll try to get a picture of it for the Zoomers too. Okay, so because I'm here at Buena Vista Audubon, I'm also on the board here at Buena Vista Audubon. Also a life member. Where'd it go? Right there. Life member, Sierra Club. I have my pin on. Just so you know where you are, there's over 300 volunteers, and we do go Del Mar through Camp Pendleton. So if you know anyone who is looking for something to do and would like to help keep the doors open on our center, please get them in touch. And you heard about the concert. So how do we, okay, next one. Okay, so I'm going to give a nice little talk about putting native plants in your yard and make it all sound wonderful and be very pleasant about that. No, let's go to the next one. Anyone who knows me knows my sense of humor. Okay, we're going to talk about worldwide domination with native plants. Okay, we are not going to sit there and say, you could add a ceanothus or a manzanita. No, we need to talk about this. If you go on a trip to Hawaii, what do you want to see? You want to see Hawaii. You go to Australia, you want to see Australia. Go to Cleveland, you want to see Cleveland. I mean, you know, I'm sure they're whatever, but you want to know where you are. Sense of place is very important. You come to San Diego, you have no idea. I married a guy who was born in Balboa Park. His parents were married in Balboa Park. You cannot get more native than he was as far as being a San Diegan. Of course, they're indigenous people, and but they didn't call it that. So he had no idea what his hometown was. And so we bought a house up here in Oceanside. And I said, well, I want to live in Oceanside. So we started going hiking and started to learn. So what this means, the more you think about it, the more sense it makes. When you look down the street, wherever you live, you should see mostly native plants because you live there, and you don't. 90% of the neighborhoods, there's not a single native plant. Some people are trying, but they'll put in lavender or rosemary, not natives. So it's a bit of a problem. Okay, so let's go to the next one. Okay, so where do we start? This is actually a picture of the blue-eyed grass, which is on the other side of this wall, right behind me. So let's sit here for a little bit. There's a lot of ways to start. It can be very daunting to start to learn about your plants and convert from a lawn and a Eastern style landscape to more what should be naturally here. So I put everything up here on a board for you, and you can take a picture of this. Maybe we can get that on there. So first we have here, you can come here and join our garden crew. I'm going to talk about that. I am going to need to see it too. She's taking a picture. Okay. And then you can join CNPS. Here, why don't I stand here with it? Okay, CNPSSD.org is the Native Plant Society San Diego chapter. CNPS is, sorry, I'm moving it around. Sorry, picture takers. CNPS.org is the statewide. Okay, then you can go to calscape.org. I'm going to talk about that. Cal IPC is the Invasive Plant Council. And then Facebook. If anybody's a Facebooker, that's what got me through the pandemic, was looking at pretty people's pretty pictures of native plants and talking about propagation and invasive plants and everything everybody was doing. So there's a whole bunch of different ones, but you want to not get Southern California gardeners. You want Southern California native plant gardeners, okay? Because otherwise you're talking about rosemary and stuff. Well, also books. I have a bunch of books behind me. I'll show you. There's an app called iNaturalist that you'll hear a little bit about later. But you use that for identification. Preserve Calavera is a great organization. Paige does a great job with them. ChaparralInstitute.org. And then on YouTube, Greg Rubin has a great lecture on firescaping. I think it was for up in the Bay Area. You can look up. And then my two favorites, Crime Pays, but Botany Doesn't. This is not for children, not for children. No, you go do his tutorials and be ready for some Chicago humor. And City Nerd gives a great explanation of urbanism. I really like City Nerd. He goes through cities and says, here's what we're doing wrong. So I'm going to give this back to somebody to put where people can take pictures or show the camera. Okay. Some of those things, this is the book you should have. If you don't own this, you need it. It's by Greg Rubin and Lucy Warren. They're from here. And so,
Motion to
know the
approve
print, but you
driveway
never-
extension as described, homeowner to coordinate sprinkler movement / cost with LEC / HOA or something.
somebody has stolen the mic from me. Okay, so you get a book and you never read all those words in the front. You just go right to the pretty plant pictures. Read this book. He's got a great approach, and that's what you should be doing. I'm going to simplify that for you. If you insist on growing grasses, there's a whole bunch of grasses. There's 3 non-native grasses to 1 thing of natives. So there's a lot there. And I've got a bunch of other books here. So one of the easiest ways to start, let's go to the next slide, is to show up here every Monday from 9 to 11, no matter what. We are here. We only take off if it's a major holiday. In 2022, our major holiday was 4th of July. This year, it's Christmas Day. And I think for next year, it's New Year's Day, which, knowing my group, they're in bed by 9, so they're going to be here. If you want to come on New Year's Day, we'll be here. Friendly way to learn. We have our group here, and we'll help you out. We do scout projects and all kinds of things. So that's one easy way, is to just show up here any Monday, 9 to 11. Let's keep going. Okay, then take the tours. So I'm going to hand out, figure out where I put them. Oh, here they are. Has anybody been on our garden tour? All right, we have. Okay, if you can take one and pass it that way. Every year we have a garden tour in the historic seaside neighborhood of Oceanside. We've been doing it for over 20 years. We're the oldest neighborhood garden tour. And every house is a front yard native plant garden. So if you look at the map, you've got, that one's a couple years old. We always overdo and then we hand them out for free. And it's a free tour. You can just drive through and look at the yard. You can walk through. People are used to seeing people standing in front of their houses with these. So feel free. If anybody wants to help with the incomprehensible plant list on the back, let me know. Yeah. Oh, no.
You can hear me. Can they hear me? Okay. Just quickly, for the people who are on Zoom, can we follow up with a photo of this, and we'll send around, if it's okay, your presentation and then
Yes.
some of this information that we're passing out here, so they don't
Okay.
feel left out.
And this can be found on Buena Vista Audubon's website,
Perfect.
although I'll have to tell you how to get there. So, experts lead the tour. You walk around in groups of, we try for 15, but if Greg Rubin shows up, it's 40. And we basically take over the streets. So that's a lot of fun. Now, the really great tour is the CNPS tour. That one you have to buy tickets, and they're big yards and really spectacular places all over the county. So if you know anybody with a yard that's really native, all native plants that can be shown, please contact CNPS SD, because they are looking for houses for the next tour, they're usually in March and April. And we try to avoid when Theodore Payne's doing it, so you can go to that one too. So that's one easy way to learn. Let's go to the next slide. Okay, now I'm going to talk about successful versus failed landscapes. Usually people keep it positive. They only talk about the successful stuff. Yeah, that's not me. So now we're going to start with success. Let's go to the next one. Every picture here, I either have permission of the people and the place, or they know how I feel. I've had these conversations. Can we hit the lights a little bit for the pictures? Paige knows where they are. So on the right, is a parkway. This is in Oceanside. It's 32-year-old landscape. It is coastal sage scrub plants. That's what CSS stands for. It's got natural depth. That means it's never been blown. It's never been raked. None of that stuff. Whatever falls, falls. I have a garden at Laurel Elementary, and I was explaining how if a tree wants its leaves to land under it, it would do that, and it would just leave them there. The tree doesn't, oh, we need a blower over here. The tree just leaves it there. And I said, if that's why the tree does that. And this little girl just looked at me and screwed up her face and said, so you just leaf it where it falls? I said, yeah, exactly. You leaf it where it falls. So if you have a tree, design your landscape so that you can do that. That it is an oak tree. It was planted from a 1 gallon. Always plant 1 gallons. There's no irrigation there. The city ripped it out many years ago when they put in the ADA ramps. So that was gone, probably 20 years ago. The ones on the left, this is a newer garden. I think Sally's taken off. This is actually Sally's house, who was here for Buena Vista Audubon. Yes, this is during the tour. It's desert plants in the parkway. So she's used decomposed granite mulch. You got to match your mulch to the parkway, to the plants. Kids and bugs love it, and it's been very successful there. So let's go to the next one. Now for failure. Okay, so what we have here is failed landscapes. A lawn can be a failed landscape. If you're paying someone to spew greenhouse gases every single week, that's failure. We got to start looking at that as failure. If you're blowing dirt to make dirt clean, that is failure. So we really got to think about failure. Here at Buena Vista Audubon, we have a little patch in front that we have, it's our front lawn, and we have repurposed the word lawn. So that means the plants that are in the front. It's not flat plastic grass like that. So under that plastic grass is concrete. They poured concrete and then they put plastic grass on it. Those plants are something people love, but they look like sticks all year long, and they pour stuff on it and they blow and whatnot. Anyway, so it has issues. Pretty is not a good enough criteria for any plant. So we've taken the entire field of botany and biology and turned it into one word, pretty. Would you go to a middle school girl and say, we know you're talented, we know you're smart, we know all this stuff, but we're only going to evaluate you on pretty? It's been done. It wasn't good. It's not a good path forward. So if you think of our native plants as, you've come here to live here and you've entered into a relationship with this place. So what if your spouse said, oh, you know what, I'm going to go with them because they're prettier or more handsome than you. And you go, okay, that'll work. No, you won't do that. So you have to think differently. So pretty it's nice, but it's a byproduct. It's not why you plant a plant. Okay, one saving grace on this house here is that they do have a permeable driveway. I'm envious of their permeable driveway, but the rest of it, there really is no water retention whatsoever. And then coming down, the reason I harp on pretty is because there's a thing called Mexican feathergrass there. And it is impervious, correct. Can we go to the next slide? It's also, plastic grass is just putting little bits of plastic out into the storm drains. Go back one, I think. Do I? Nope. Okay, go forward. I'm getting there. Okay, so what are natives? What are native plants? There were dinosaurs. People did not exist with dinosaurs, even if you saw the movie. And then there's been the evolution of plants. And then modern people bring invasive plants. I don't think indigenous people brought them because they just didn't move quickly enough. And they would move to an area and then adapt, and then move to an area and adapt. And it took many, many years. People say, oh, this has been here 300 years. It's naturalized. 300 years is nothing, absolutely nothing in evolution. So nature really has no time to respond to those things. So we don't really even know about microbes and things in the soil. We have microbes in our eyes we don't know about, that are very helpful. So we really don't know what we don't know. So when we bring a plant from somewhere else, we don't really know what we're doing. And really, and San Diego, as you know, is the most diverse county. Okay, so we'll continue. So, okay, the next thing you have to know is your seasons. Does anybody here know their seasons? So what is today? What was today? Any ideas? On a calendar. But what happened today? Anybody know what the temperature, high temperature was today? 80 degrees. Anybody know the humidity? 16%. And that was on my phone, which is west of 5. So, so west of 5 it was that. I don't know what it was, east of 5. So that is winter. We had winter today. This week we had winter. Okay, so the way our seasons work is that when the rains start, the first rain is the start of spring. For many years during the drought, we would get rain in like October. It would go a full month before it would rain again, and there'd go a full month, it would rain again, and then something would start in February. So it was a very slow start to spring, but it was spring nonetheless. And you'll notice wildflowers, they'll give up a few each time it rains. They don't all go. So we're special on this. There's only a few places on Earth that have our seasons. So the spring, the wet season on the bottom there is when the rains start. It can start in November, it can start in October, it can start in February, depends. And until that goes around April, it stops raining. Native plants go 6 months with no rain, no real rain. On the coast, they get fog. It never stopped being fog this summer. So we got a lot of fog, but they go 6 months with no water. So you get a little bit of spring, big spring, a little bit of summer, a little bit of fall, and then maybe 3 days of winter is what we got this year. Or sometimes, as you recall, we've had weeks of Santa Anas, and that's a really extended winter. So the plants go dormant because of that. So when they go dormant, they're just going dormant. It's okay. You don't have to go out and kill them and cut them down and destroy them. When things go dormant in Ohio, back to Cleveland, or whatever, they go dormant. They don't go cut down all those trees that are bare and cut down all the rose bushes and cut down all the everything. They just let it sit there all craggy and get covered in snow, or maybe not get covered in snow, but they don't go destroy the whole landscape because they lost their leaves. We do that around here. We say, oh, it's dead, taking them out. Don't do that. Let them be. And the main thing, well, there's a picture there of a golden bush. I love that plant. After it stopped raining and it's been hot and miserable, that plant says, oh, bloom now? Okay. It's a great plant. Everybody should have golden bush. There's 3 different kinds, so you have to know which one. That's an isocoma. And the last point there is that you're not growing plants. This is the big secret of gardening. You're not growing plants. You're growing insects. So you're growing a food source for something. So you really want to think about that. And before you import that plant, you want to think, do I really want the hissing Madagascar cockroach to come here? I don't know what its food source is, but it's just such a great example, and everybody's afraid of them. Okay, next. Okay, this is what I was skipping ahead to. That grass that you saw in that other picture is in the upper left side. That's that house. Okay, down here in the lower right, you see this thing where the seeds are just like cottony right there. I call them snot balls. Sorry, but they are. And the picture above that is 2 houses above that start where it's blowing uphill. And where it's planted itself at the palm tree is another 2 houses uphill. So this is a terrible, terrible plant, Mexican feathergrass. Do not grow it. That curb that's there were 60 plants growing in it. If anything should be banned, this plant needs to be banned. It should not be used anywhere. Solana Beach started it along 101, and it really needs to be stopped. There's many things you can do. You get to help remove invasives, and the best way to protect nature is to remove invasives. If we can just stop invasives. Pampas grass became this pretty thing that people had around their weddings. Stop them, call them on it. because I mean, that's a wedding of death if you have pampas grass. It is. It's destroying acres and acres. Pampas is bad, it says. Okay, next slide. The other one, fountain grass. They sell you this red one here in the corner, and they say it's not invasive because they're not red. Okay, they know better, and they just don't tell you. This is a horticultural lie. The red ones are clones. The seeds turn into the ones that are along every single roadway. So fountain grass and feather grass, anything with a foxtail, don't grow it. Those are our volunteers. Paige may be in that picture, I don't know. But that group is across the street, and we're removing ice plant, eucalyptus, we know about those. Limonium is sea lavender. That sea lavender came from the Canary Islands. It's another problem. Gazania, wattle, purple morning glory, ivy, palms, fennel, mustard, jade plant, castor bean, etc. And somebody even planted some succulents we had to go dig up. When I walk through a nursery, I count natives on one hand, invasives on the other, and I'm pretty strict about it. It's always 5 to 1. They're selling 5 invasive plants for every native plant. And acres of habitat. I had students from Palomar GIS program map our lagoon. There are 30 to 80 palms of the Canary Island palms, and then 30 and then 80 of the Washingtonias in the lagoon. So back to what's a native. We could have a new native. Okay. So the Fukushima disaster, there was that tidal wave, went across and then went all the way back to Oregon, or maybe it just went straight to Oregon. If it had hit Japan, picked up a seed and taken it to Oregon and it had rooted, that would be a new native plant. If that seed was radioactive, no, that had human interaction, right? Because it went through the Fukushima power plant and went across. If it was not native to Japan, it wouldn't be native. So a seed could arrive today on our shores and root itself, but it would have to be a truly natural event to be a native plant. Okay, let's go with the next one. Okay, so now success with natives. How can you do this? So if you wanted to do your yard, I'm just going to go through a quick example of a simple way to do things. You can read all these books. I really, please buy them and support them and read native plant books. But to do it, you can simplify. So first you go on a hike. So take a hike, go find where you want to be. We went to Torrey Pines. I got a postcard, and that's what we were going to do. And so that you can get oak woodlands. There's different habitats. There's about 5 different habitats that you can decide. Forest, woodland, riparian, with water, desert, and I do not recommend a meadow. I'll tell you why. Okay, so that's a ceanothus up there. Over here, this picture that's Annette, our center manager's hands. She's holding a legless lizard. It's actually a lizard. It looks like a worm. It moves like a snake, and it's a lizard. The skeleton has little bumps where the hips were. And those are actually around here. That's here at the center, and they are endangered. So I want to talk, insects eat insects. You want as many insects as you can get. Stop getting rid of your insects. Just learn to love them and give them their own native food. I raised 3 boys. They love McDonald's. I didn't give them McDonald's. So why are we giving all our insects and the basis of our food chain, basically this bad diet? So for bioswales, this bioswale is on the other side of this wall before it grew in. And so there's an easy, quick way to do a bioswale. You dig a hole and you give it an out. So if it overflows, it can overflow. The problem with if you have one that doesn't or flows toward the house, that's bad. So you got to give it away out. You can also do the calculation. This is a square building. You take the length times width times half-inch rain or 1-inch rain, and you find on a regular sized house, it's about 40 rain barrels. So if you're really going to capture your rain. So do your rain barrels, do your bioswales, but you're probably not going to get it all. Okay. Also, when people come here to work with us, they say, I'm here to help clean up. I take them aside and say, no, we don't do that. What I want them to say is I want to learn. And the reason we don't do that, this is California fuchsia. They think they renamed it epilobium, and it's sitting in deer grass. That one is growing under a manzanita, the other one, and it's coming out. And what happens when people clean up is they cut away all that brown stuff and it doesn't bloom, because this plant's very smart. It says, I'm not going to waste any energy on the whole part of the plant that isn't going to reproduce. I'm going to put it all into the flower at the end. So you got this brown thing that comes up and has a flower. So mixing it with other plants obviously hides that a little bit, but people need to learn the plants, and it's not what you think. Again, you're not trying to clean it up and make it pretty. That's not part of it. Okay, next. So this is a beginner yard. This is a friend in Jeffrey's Ranch, Oceanside, that asked me for some advice, but it's a pretty universal layout for a subdivision. There's a house on the top behind them, and then their lot, they have a north-facing slope that goes down to a flat where the house is. The house on top should drain to their street. You have to drain your lot to the street. So hopefully they did it right, and it drains away. And they have this slope. They are nearby Guajome Park, so we recommend that's a great place. Let's be Guajome Park, and it has oak woodland. So you can figure out the slope would have that oak woodland, and then the bottom could be the riparian aspects of Guajome Park. So first thing to do is figure out the flow. Where's the water going to go? You can see on this house, you see which way is north. Actually, let me back up. First thing you do is get your house on Google Earth and get this picture. And if you can, line it up so that you're not wasting all this space. But know where north is, because that's very instructive. So you see the water comes down, goes around the north side of the house. That's probably really helpful for getting a lot of stuff back and forth. They're probably having to do that because they've got a failed landscape and they're cleaning up and they're doing all that kind of stuff. On the south, you can see there's a planter area. That's a perfect bioswale place, as is the patio area right above the patio. So you figure out your flow, then you check your soil, take some dirt, put it in a jar, fill it full of water, shake it up really good, and set it on the shelf. Come back in a couple of weeks, you'll have basically a chart. How much percentage of each thing is in your soil, silt and clay and sand, and you can just figure that out. So that's very helpful. Control the weeds. You've got to start clean. If you leave Bermuda grass, it's going to win. Bermuda grass wins. The roots are 8 feet down. I've done solarization. I've sifted dirt at a school. I didn't, my husband did. But anyway, you got to control your weeds. If you just put a thing down on top of a weedy landscape, you have a weedy landscape. The next thing is a tree succession plan. So we got this large tree. Okay, this tree has problems. It's on the south side of the house. So what happens in the winter? It's also a pine tree. It's not deciduous. So during the winter, they've already got a north-facing slope, which is great in the summer, I guess. Well, anyway, all winter long, they get no sun at that house. When you want the sun, they can't have it. So tree succession. If you have a tree, plant another tree, always, and plant 1 gallons. Everybody waits. They've got these beautiful trees and they just leave them, and then the trees start dying, and then the street completely changes. So you've got to have trees at every age. So if that went right up to where those tees are and just put an oak right over there, that would be on the west side, and they would get afternoon sun, and it wouldn't interrupt the winter sun. Okay, so now we've decided up here is going to be oak woodland because they love Guajome Park, and the lower part is going to be the riparian parts. So that's sycamores and things like that. So now how do we know what those plants are? Well, there's a great resource. Go again. Okay, this is Carlscape. Carlscape was created for people to look up native plants for your zip code, and it'll tell you all the plants that could have been at your house. If you don't have the creek going through your lot, all those sycamores probably weren't there, but they were nearby. So what you do here is you put your zip code in, and I did an advanced search. I did shrub or tree for full sun and bank stabilization. Okay. So because those trees will get sun up there. And I got 30 plants. So when you're starting out, you can fall in love with every pretty bloom and every little thing, but you're just going to spend a ton of money and you're never going to get there. So with this, you start clean, which that lot was pretty clean. And you go and pick your shrubs and your trees. So there, Coast Live Oak is up here. It's a little hard to see, but Coast Live Oak. Then there's Toyones, Mission Manzanita, Mountain Mahoganies, and all kinds of stuff up there that you can use. So pick the bigger things. One plant that never shows up here, which I absolutely adore, is saltbush. And you'll see that along the railroad tracks down into Carlsbad. It's a gray-green plant. It looks flammable. But I asked a firefighter, I said, is it flammable? And if you ask a firefighter this, he looked at me and he said, you're flammable. So, okay, point taken. But he said it's one of the better ones. It's this gray-green plant. As you go down into Carlsbad, there's some hotels and it's kind of behind them along the railroad tracks. We also planted it in Oceanside along El Camino before Mesa. There's a whole bunch of it up there. And it looks pretty flammable. It's called saltbush. Saltbush is great. It takes salt out of the air. It also is a haven for birds. So if you have a saltbush, the birds just go in there, whole flocks go in there, and they're protected from cats, which is a big problem. I've even seen a hawk give up trying to get birds. It sat on a fence and just stared at this plant and couldn't figure it out. So that's a great one on a slope like that to cascade down. And it typically doesn't show up. So saltbush, Lentiformis breweri, quailbush is another word for it. Okay, so that's how you get that. And there's all those tools that I put on the board. Okay, and there's another one. If you're a birder and you want to find birds, there's a thing Audubon has called Plants for Birds, and you can go do that. Now, this one was started by people primarily in the Midwest and has migrated across the country. So it's not as comprehensive as Calscape as far as plants go. But you can say, I love waxwings and I want to plant bladderpod, which is a great little plant. So please use that. And the last thing, Argentine ants. We need to rename them. We've no shade on Argentina, but we hate these ants. They came in on nursery stock. There's the horticulture thing again. Nursery stock. And the thing with them is they get along with every single colony. And it would be great if they didn't. They're the model of getting along, but the problem with them getting along is that they're not adapted to our plants and they've taken over. And a lot of you probably know that's why the horned toad is endangered and stuff, because those ants have been killed. So it's just colony after colony after colony. Some people say from here to San Francisco. And what they do is they actually colonize the plant. So when they've gotten into a plant, it doesn't matter how much you water it. That's not the problem. The ants have actually interrupted the nutrient cycle of the plant. So there is a way to treat them. You have to go to, I think I have it on there, cnpssd.org, garden. Under garden is resources, and under that is general statement on ants. It involves neem oil, super thrive, and a biological that you treat them with, and you can save your plant. But if you have ants, you need to control them because you will lose plants. And they'll just, I mean, it doesn't take long. They look great and then limbs start dying. Okay, so that's the other big tip. And now we're going to the next one. Okay, so this is eye candy. We love our eye candy. Buy all the books for the eye candy. Again, that's the meadow of blue-eyed grass. That was this spring. It doesn't look like that today. It's right on the other side of this wall. In nature, it looks like the one on the left. It's one little plant and it blooms for about a week and it's very pretty and it's fantastic to find and you get so excited. But that's what it looks like. It doesn't look like this meadow. The other one is Carex spissica. It's a type of grass, and that is way far in the distance. You can see people there. That is on the CNPS SD tour, and that is a fantastic landscape way out in Oliebenhain. But they have a paid garden crew. It's a huge, I mean, a house would put this whole place to shame. So do not plant a meadow unless you are serious about weeding or you have quite the garden crew. So that's why I wanted to save you from meadowing. Not a good idea. Okay, so now I'll go to questions. I see one up there. Do ants eat the plants? Okay. Okay. Okay, quick answer, no.
All right, so we're going to have David Newman come up. I'm going to put a little plug. I also teach a California Naturalist certification class, which David was a recent graduate from. And so he's going to be talking about his capstone project, which has gone beyond what he wanted to do. But our class is a good way of learning about native plants as well. So David, come on up and.
All right. Thank you very much, Paige. Hi, everybody. David Newman. Nice to meet you. And just to say, I'm honored to be around such great environmentalists and humbled to be, up here with Joan and with Theresa and the grand things that you're doing. And so, all of us try and do the things that we can when we can. And so, when I joined Paige and Karen for the California Naturalist certification, there it is. It came back. I need to hold it closer. All right. So I joined immediately. In fact, it went so fast, I ended up being on your waiting list for a little while. And then you called me back and I was so excited to be a part of the group. And so, one, just learning how to be a naturalist and, understanding our local climate and plants and environment was great. But the capstone project ended up being something that I really gravitated towards. And so that's really what I want to share with you today. If you like native plants, you're going to, like this presentation because that's what I had to do with. And so it's a Greenbelt habitat restoration plan that we came up with. And I underline the word plan because I'll show you what the plan was and then sort of how things ended up just to be able to get a perspective on it. So next slide. So what's interesting about this area, so it's very close to my house. In fact, part of it just butts up against my backyard. And so it's a divider between two different communities. And so as part of it, when they went through and they did all the landscaping and, grading for the houses and everything, they scraped this entire area clean of plants. And so then it just became a haven for invasives. And so when you take a look back there, it's just a mass of fennel and tumbleweeds and things like that, and non-native grasses. And so, my goal was with Preserve Calavera to try and, turn this or transform it into a more native habitat. And so, we wanted to plant all native species of plant. And by native, back to what Joan said is, you go to Calscape and you find out what's exactly native. So this butts up to Dank Mountain, if you happen to know what Dank Mountain is, where that is in Carlsbad. But anyway, if it didn't grow on Dank Mountain, we weren't going to put it in that particular area. We wanted it as native, truly native as possible. And so, and we ended up funding it through Preserve Calavera with, some support. And ultimately, we just wanted something that was self-sustaining out there. And so that was sort of the plan. And if you go to the next slide. So this is a quick overview of the entirety of the area. And what's interesting about it is that, the houses off to the right side for you guys is one community. Below that line or to the left is another community. And so it turns out, just as luck would have it for me, is that there's a line right down the middle. And so those two HOAs that manage those things own half of the property on each. So if I wanted to go out there and do any planting, I needed to get the permission of the HOA. And so we'll talk about that a little bit more. So next slide. So, but it was a pretty good sized area. And so if you just take a look at the lower hill, that's what it looks like, this long strip. And you can see just, a bunch of non-native grasses. Next slide. when you look at what's out there, I actually went through and took stock on like, well, what is actually growing in this area right there? And so you talked about the golden wattle being invasive. So there was one of those growing down there. There's actually a beautiful oak I didn't list, but it's just massive. It's like a 150-year-old oak that's down there. That's just a masterpiece. But then there was a blue elderberry down there and a laurel sumac, two decent sized ones that were just in the middle of no place, trying to, eke out a living. If you go to the next slide. This is a look up the hill, so you can see the rest of it, more of the same, essentially. Next slide. And what was up there, there was just like a big rock pile that was like a bunch of refuse, all the rocks that they had left over for construction of the community, they just dumped them all over there and threw a little bit of dirt on top of it. And then there was one little teeny section there, which was some chaparral scrub stuff that's just growing there. And then that was it. The rest of it was bare. So the proposal was, again, to go with these native plants, on the lower half, I ended up, and the reason that you see this particular image is this is what I used to go to the HOA boards to present this to try and get approval. Because of course, if you want to do anything with an HOA, you actually have to submit an architectural, improvement form. So then there's, process with that. Then it goes to the board. They have to review it. And so I had to do all these drawings to kind of show what it is that I had in mind when it was fully grown. But you can see the list of plants, more of the blue elderberry, some more laurel sumac, mule fat, coyote bush, chamise, lemonade, berry, lilac, toyon, and then some chaparral, mallow, and prickly pear that we put in there. And so that was the plan. And so if you go to the next slide, this is just the upper slope, pretty much the exact same plants, just all spread out. So one of the things you'll get is I tried to pick ultimately big plants so that it would cover this area relatively quickly and just grow out. And so, cover as much ground as possible was the idea. Next slide. So when I started this out, I was like, okay, so we'll just, get the city of Carlsbad to, get their approval, the 2 HOAs, and then we'll start planting in the fall of 2022. And so that was the plan, right? So somebody's laughing because maybe you've experienced HOAs and all these different things before, right? So if you go to the next one. So yeah, now here's the update, what happened exactly. So next slide. So this was the process. So the city of Carlsbad, and turns out Roseanne Humphreys, who is a great, friend to Preserve Calavera and the California Naturalist Program, didn't even need the city of Carlsbad's approval because it turns out it's private land. So, but she was nice enough to give some consultation and help with it. And so she was a great resource there. Artero is actually my HOA. And so we had to submit, they waived the fee, which was the kind of support they gave, which that was nice of them. But it ended up taking almost 6 months and multiple rounds of presentations to be able to get approval. They actually had to go to outside counsel, get feedback that it was okay for me to do this. They had to augment the insurance plan because we're going to have volunteers over there doing planting. It's like, talk about absolutely going out of your way to try and complicate something as much as possible. It was unbelievable. So that was my HOA. And then I had La Costa Oaks' HOA. And so also had to go there. Turns out they had no fee, but I had to go through the landscape committee and then the full board. I mean, I kept going over there and presenting multiple times. And my approach here, after I started running into these kind of roadblocks, was I'm just going to keep going until it's hopeless, and I felt hopeless at times, but there was always a glimmer of hope. And so I just kept on going and, it evolved. And so finally, the worst part, this was the almost death blow, was the Olivenhain Water District. Turns out on that entire strip there, that nice long thing, there's a water main underneath that whole thing. And so turns out they have an easement. And so for me able to do planting out there, you have to get an easement permit, or to be able to go out there and do that. Well, of course, they wanted a $600 fee just to be able to submit the application and to review it. And so, although I could afford the $600 fee, I was ready to take a stand and was going to fight it. But Diane Nygaard came along and said, "Well, we'll pay it. and then we'll go with you and try and, go to the water district and appeal to them to give us a refund and refund the money. And so that's what we did. We ended up going to their public forum. They had the board. Diane got up and gave a very impassioned speech and guilted them into, approving what we were doing and also refunding the $600, which they ended up getting it back. So yes. So yeah, props to Diane and, and Paige and Karen were so supportive all along the way and rooting me on. So, we managed to get it done. So that said, after all of this, we actually planted in January of 2023. So I was a little bit off in my timing, but we felt we were okay. So next slide. So yeah, so we ended up with 15 volunteers that came out, great crew. Let's see, since Lance is here, Jeff and Chris from the Lagoon Foundation were co-students, and so they came out. Paige was there, Karen was there, Diane was there, and a bunch of my neighbors and some family members in there as well. And so we ended up planting 44 plants out there total. And then if you go to the next slide. For the most part, everything made it except for 10 plants. And so interesting, the ones that died. So there was some gophers out there that literally like pushed them up and set them off to the side. So I'd go down there. I have to go out there once a week to water these plants just to get them settled and through the summer, right? So this is something I do every weekend. Got my bucket and I got a hose I throw over and just go out there and water it. And so yeah, they just threw them out and left them on the ground. And so they didn't make it. And then there were some ants that did get in there into the root balls. You'd water it and you'd see the ants come boiling up out of them. And so you'd know that that was your problem. And so they took out some of the plants as well. That said, 34 ended up making it and are doing great. And so, I took some pictures there. Hard to appreciate, but net, what you ended up with is they've pretty much like quadrupled in size, all of them. And so they continue to do well. And, we'll just keep that. One of the things that you'll notice, there's a lot of weeds growing out there again. So the other HOA, once a year, they have a crew come through there and clear cut that whole area, which is part of the reason why nothing was ever growing. They did leave the bigger plants alone, but none of the small ones. So they just leveled everything. So I've been living in fear that they're going to come through and wipe out all my plants. So I did a walkthrough last weekend with the landscapers. We've staked everything and there's paint or big circles around each one of the plants. And so they know not to destroy my plants and they're totally on board. They're being very good. Everybody's been, very pleased with what we're trying to accomplish, but it wasn't, despite obstacles. So the plants I think are going to do great once they clear cut that. If you go to that next slide, which I believe is the next to last, is, we're just going to replace the dead plants and we're going to continue to add things. And pretty much now that I got permission for all this, I'm out there every weekend. This is my backyard now. So I'm going to continue to build it out until it's a native habitat. And next slide, I think that's it. So that's it for questions and thank you.
Good questions together.
For the people on Zoom, we're doing the questions together. So questions from either one of the speakers, feel free to write some in.
The 10 plants that you lost, was there any pattern to them or was it just all over the place?
No, so the lower area was the area, there's a little bit more moisture down there. The gophers seemed to like it down there more. So they're the ones that, that took those ones out. And up higher on the hill, it's more dry. I think it was that, some of the plants just didn't make it. I can only get out there and water once a week. And some of them, you get these plants and I got most of them. Just a quick plug for Neil's nursery, Tori is a buddy, I go down there all the time and check out her plants. And so she's down on the 101 next to the Panikin. Yeah. And so she's got the best selection of native plants, at least close by. So anyway, she helped me get all those plants, but sometimes, they just aren't rooted that well. They look like they're good plants, but when I get done and pull them out, when they died, they just really didn't have much roots and it weren't rotten out or anything like that. They just, wasn't as robust as they could have been. So, maybe a weak plant to start with. Lance.
Wait a sec. Let me give you the mic.
Is it possible to use native plant seeds to really broadcast a seed before a rainy season and that's a way to restore a landscape?
Yes. And like voting, you do it early and often. No, just kidding. Um, so you take your seeds, and like I said, sometimes you're going to get one rain and then not another rain, but the seeds also won't all go at the same time. But keep spreading, and you can do that. They did the right thing on this restoration by putting the bigger plants in. Okay, so now there's an evergreen backbone. Now you can go in and start getting areas of natives. So what they've learned is if natives are there all together in a pretty clean area, they'll protect the center and you can kind of work the edge out. Whereas if you mix it all up, that doesn't work as well. So I would encourage take areas and start stands of things, but keep putting it in.
I have a question. What is your recommendation for getting rid of weeds? I know that certain folks in the native plant space still are recommending, chemical sprays, Roundup and things like that.
Yeah, it's a fraught topic, let me tell you. So first off, you clear as much as you can. Then you water so you know where things are. Solarization can work. Be careful which plastic you use. I got to vacuum a whole bunch of plastic out of one yard because we use, I think somebody got some furniture and we just put it on the ground, which it was there for months and months. So you can do that. It's a great use of old plastic, So solarization is good. This year was particularly difficult with that because the sun just didn't come out for that. But I recommend those two things. There is the matter of pampas, well, that too. Bermuda. Bermuda is insidious and it goes down forever. So if you're content to keep digging and never let it come back, every time you get a little bit of green, you got to dig down and it's going to show up over here and you got to dig down. So you've got to be diligent. And if you're willing to do that, knock yourself out. That's the way to do it. But the other way is to clear as much as you can. You do some watering and it comes up in little bits. And this is where one concept is to use as little as possible of anything. And you zap that one little bit and just really keep it contained. So that's the only ways I know with Bermuda. Bermuda will win in the end. And it's one of the worst invasive plants. And grasses in particular are terrible plants because they're so insidious. And really, they should have been banning these grasses. All these ornamental grasses you see in the nursery and stuff, don't buy them, don't use them.
This one windstorm, one windy day can, yeah, yep. Just say in terms of one windy day, you can blow in all kinds of the invasive seeds again. So is there some kind of recommendation for dealing with that?
So on our house, our first house with the oak, we then moved 3 blocks and took over an old Bermuda lawn and did that where, just really moved it back. There was also some construction, so it was a lot of turmoil. But when it came time for the mulch, I way overbought gorilla hair. Gorilla hair is what they make teak when they make a deck, teak or not teak, redwood. They grow it, it's farmed redwood. They take the bark off and they save it. They call it gorilla hair because it looks like gorilla hair. It's orange. And you just take this and just pile it in your yard. And I overbought it. So I bought this huge, thick, it was thick, but it scrunches down. Okay, so I had an area in my yard that was basically a bank of mulch. And I would take it out and I would spread it about 6 inches thick and it would slowly tamp down. And as I did an area, I was able to bring out my mulch and put it in. That stuff is amazing. It does not break down. It does not change. And on that 32-year-old landscape, there are places you can dig down and it's still there. It's covered in leaves and all kinds of stuff. It has not changed at all. So gorilla hair mulch that's the thing I've spent the most on. I've done a bunch of landscapes and that's where I spent the most money. was on gorilla hair mulch.
Question for Joan. As I recall, you said most plant nurseries have a ratio of 1 native to 5 invasives. Does
Yeah.
that mean you consider everything that's not a native an invasive?
No, it's active invasives. There are many times you get something, it's a cultivar, but when it goes to a seed, cultivars are clones. So if you had a red one and now they found a pink one or a green one or something, that one is a clone of a plant for that particular flower. When it goes to seed, it's going to go to the original. So those are the ones I count. The ones that when they go to seed, that's going to show up in places it wasn't intended to be. And there are many, many plants that are just openly sold that they don't even consider this, or they tell you, no, it's the white one. One is lantana. Lantana, they have yellow, they have white, they have all that, but the original one was that multicolored one. The seeds go back, and we do see it here. Not much, but we do see it here. We see a lot of purple morning glory and things like that. So I'm, a lot of them I have experience digging through a lemonade berry and yanking it out. So, yeah.
I've been told that you shouldn't water the natives very often, but how
Yeah.
often?
I'll simplify that for you. Water them once a month all year long. Because if you water once a month, if it's raining, it's the rainy season. They're supposed to get water. If it's not, they're going to dry out in between. So if you just water once a month with a good watering, and Greg Rubin has a great concept. You come in the afternoon, you pop your drink, whatever you're going to have. In his case, it was a beer, and you get the hose in one hand and your beer in the other. And when you're done, you're done. And you just do this. And, we're trying to figure out how to do that without everybody showing up with the wrong idea here. I haven't figured out how to market that. I did want to point out my shirt, if you didn't see, says the earth is worth saving. That's what the translation is. And I apologize to all the people on Zoom. My right and left were backward. Sorry.
So I'm curious, how do you keep a project like this going, like a 5-year, 10-year plus plan when maybe you move or something happens? Oh, how do you do you have a 5-year plan, 10-year plan? How do you keep a project like this going? You put so much work to get it started. What happens?
Well, one, hope not to move. This was final destination, so I'll be there. And then two, just getting the plants established. And so if they can get big enough, we talked about like, how do you get rid of the, the non-native invasives? The plants I picked are going to get so big that hopefully they'll win the war against the other plants, right? The invasives, and crowd it out because they'll be higher and bigger than the other ones. And so, one is plant selection. Two is just getting them established. And in the fullness of time, hopefully it'll start self-propagating and take care of itself.
So we're going to take.
I do a little fuller. There was a question on ants. Do they eat the plant?
Oh, yeah.
No,
Okay.
they don't, but it's really complicated. Plants also don't bring in water from their roots. The plants work with microbes that get water. So the ants are dealing with the microbes, and there's aphids involved. So the ants are a little more like ranchers in the plant, and they actually go inside the plant, and they're crawling through the center of the plant. So sometimes you don't see them at all. Okay, just wanted to answer that.
So we're going to take a quick moment and we're going to do the raffle. And then if you guys are willing to hang out for a few minutes for people who have additional questions, that would be awesome. So Mike, you're going to be my first, you'll draw a name. Close your eyes. Don't rig it. Don't take the money, just the name. Bob Warwick. Oh, here we go. You have your choice between a dozen eggs or fresh honey from the Encinitas Bee Company. All right. So 1 dozen eggs goes to Bob. All right. We have 1 more or 2 more. Sorry. Uh-oh. Oh, it's Harold, where's Harold? Harold, you get eggs or honey? Eggs. Okay, so now we have honey left, which, by the way, they're my neighbors in Encinitas. And if you ever have a issue with bees on your property, they're awesome. They come, they capture the bees, they bring them, they put them in a hive. They have this fabulous honey, and you can always come by and get some. Okay, drum roll, last person. Teresa's been waiting for this. Oh, Carl, you get the honey. Wait, I'm going to give you the microphone.
They're a little low on inventory right now, but you're more than welcome to have a couple packets. So I'm going to just leave them right here. I think that's it.
Yeah, were there any other questions people wanted to quick ask online or anything? I think we're good. All set. Thank you, people on Zoom, for hanging out and tolerating. I know it's hard to get the same impact from the meeting, but we appreciate your logging on. And thanks, everybody.